For a long time, I was not sure about uploading any videos right now. I just didn't feel that with everything that was going on in the world right now that I should be uploading fun content or just content that was joyful in any way. I just feel that right now there are so many things going on in the world that um, seems that this is the wrong time. So I almost scrapped this whole vlog just not put it up. But I came to just kind of realize that during this time, there may be someone who needs something random to watch, something that kind of means nothing. Maybe they're too stressed out with what is going on, and maybe they just need a little bit of a break, something where they can kind of um, bring that anxiety down before they go back out and tackle more of what is going on. And maybe this will help in some way. I have always been an introvert, have never really felt comfortable speaking about things, just anything. I mostly write about something, about big emotions that I have. It's hard for me to stand up in front of people and just kind of talk about how I feel. It's never been something that has come easily for me. And I don't want to be silent at this time, but I also don't want to, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And that I feel would be very detrimental. But I also understand that being silent isn't a good thing either. So I realize that I was born into huge privilege. I accept that. I see that. And I have no idea what it's like to be black in America right now. I have no clue. But I want to show my support, and I want to let people know that this is not okay. And I acknowledge my privilege, and I want to do what I can. So I want to start reading more books about black people. I want to start reading more books written by black people, and I want to understand more than I do now. And that is what I can do. And I hope that this vlog will give you an hour of time where you can not have to worry about what is going on in the world, and maybe it can be something where it helps you to de-stress. And then once you've had that a little bit of time, then you can be ready to tackle more of the injustices in the world. I hope that you enjoy. I think I am going to try reading vlogs. Something new. I don't know, I'm just kind of deciding that I kind of enjoy making these vlogs. I had a good time with a couple of readathons I've done. Sometimes I get lazy on my editing, or it takes me a little while to do it. But I have really enjoyed making these. So I think I'm going to keep going. Whenever I start a new book, I might do a vlog with it. It kind of depends on the book, I guess. But I just started one today. It's called Ghosts of Gotham by Craig Schaefer. And Craig Schaefer does like urban fantasies. I love urban fantasy. It's one of my favorite genres. I'm not a huge high fantasy person. I like when things kind of take place in our world and I don't have to spend a lot of time um, or even like being confused about a new magic system or a new world. And I find that high fantasy is usually a big plot point of high fantasy is political unrest and wars and stuff like that, and that's not really something that I enjoy reading about, so I don't usually read high fantasy. um but since urban fantasy takes part in our world, it's fun to kind of see that and a little bit of a real world element, though there are like witches and wizards and vampires and werewolves and demons and any kind of thing that you could kind of think of, which makes it super fun for me. I really enjoy that genre. With Craig Schaefer, he has a couple of series. He has a Daniel Faust series, which Daniel Faust is a wizard. Ooh, I can't remember. I've only read one book of his. He's based in Las Vegas. His are pretty gritty, things like that. I've read one. I did enjoy that book, but I haven't finished or continued on in the series. The other series he has that I know really well is the Harmony Black series, which I've read every book so far in that series, which is super fun. Harmony Black is a witch, and she is in a secret branch of the FBI who takes care of the kind of paranormal things that go on and happen. And her partner is her father is like kind of like a wolf demon. So she's like part wolf demon, which is really cool when she lets her power out. So she has very interesting, like her group, Harmony Black's like group, is super fun. And I really enjoy those books, so I always buy them right when they come out and read them. There's like 5 books in the series so far, I believe. That's a really fun series. So, so I just started this book. I'm actually listening to it. So I've got about 2 hours or so into a 10-hour or 12-hour audiobook. We're just setting up the story. Lionel Page is the main guy in this book. He is following, well, he is someone who grew up in kind of a cult, I think. I don't know for sure yet, but I know that he was like the only survivor of like a mass murder or maybe cult group suicide. I'm not really sure yet. You kind of get a glimpse of that in the beginning. I'm not really sure, but he is a he's a reporter, and he spends all of his time like debunking kind of certain things, like religious things. Like in the beginning of the book, he is in a church, and they are there's a priest or a pastor, whatever, reverend, whatever he calls himself, and he's healing people with holy water, and you will be healed if you have faith and all of that stuff. And he kind of debunks him because he has put some recorders in the guy's church, and they hear that his wife is giving him all this information about the people that he is talking to through like an earpiece. So he kind of goes around and debunks these myths. He doesn't believe in anything spiritual or magical, and he gets a call from a mysterious lady who is like, there is a story that Poe wrote about a guy who, I don't know a lot about Poe. I've enjoyed the stuff that I've read, but I don't remember this story. But it's a story about a guy who they put into a trance, and while he was in a trance, his heart stopped and he died, but the guy was still like giving them information. And when they took him out of the trance, then his body decomposed right in front of them. And this is said to have been actually true, but when Poe wrote it, people were like, you can't put that it's actually true, like blah 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 blah, you have to act like it's actually a story. So what was published is actually like a fictional story, but it is said that it actually happened. And so this lady's like, I heard that there is a manuscript of this story that was his first manuscript that actually states that this thing that happened is actually true. I want you, someone says they have it, they want to sell it, I want to buy it, I need you to go and see if this is actually true, I need you to find it. She's kind of a sketchy character. She has a lot of money. She sends him to New York from her house. When he gets there, like, he has this nice hotel and this suitcase of new clothes and everything, and she seems kind of sketchy. And before he like was called by this lady, he had a reporter come into him and ask him about his past, and no one had ever asked. He likes to keep it private, and this is the first person who has ever like found it out. And he was gonna do this whole story on him. The guy's like, I don't want that, and he leaves. And this lady who had called him said, don't worry, if you do this for me, I will make sure that this story never comes out. And he's like, how do you know about this? She's like, I have my ways. I know a lot of things. And she goes, if you do this for me, I will keep your secret, and I will make sure that no one else knows it. So he gets on a plane. He agrees to do this, find out about this Poe manuscript for her, and goes to New York. And he gets a call from his boss and is like, where are you? And the guy goes, I'm in New York. It's a long story, but I will tell you. And she goes, that reporter is dead. So now he's like, okay, so did this lady do it? Like, who did it? And he's like reluctant to talk about her. And her contact that he's supposed to meet about this has said, don't, you are in her world, but make sure you try and get out because she's a sketchy character. So there's all this like kind of just a mystery around who this lady is, what she's doing, what she wants. You kind of find out that there's someone else working for her that is also looking for the manuscript, but they don't know about each other. And she may have some magical powers of some sort. But like I said, I'm only 2 hours into like 12 or 14 hour audiobook, so just finding the beginning of the story. But I love Craig Schaefer's writing. It's the way he like describes things and scenes, and it's very atmospheric. It's kind of his books always feel kind of dark and gritty, like most of the stuff happens at night, even though it's not really like that, but it just kind of has that darker tone, overtone of like the atmosphere that you're kind of in. And so it's interesting just kind of getting the edges of the story. We have only touched on a bit of magic, and we don't really know if it's actually magic, but the other person that the main lady, I wish I could remember her name, help a lot. The other person that she has working for her seems to be magical in some sort of way. So she's quite mysterious, and I really like to know more about her. You kind of get both sides of the story. Maddie is her name, and Lionel. They're both looking into this manuscript unbeknownst to the other person. So we're getting both sides of their story, and Maddie seems stuck in this and in what she's doing. She doesn't want to be in New York. She's kind of afraid of being in New York, and her side of the story is really interesting for me. So I will update you guys when I know more, and we'll try out this reading vlog. I have listened to a couple more hours of Ghosts of Gotham, and a few things. So I remembered the name of the lady who has hired both Maddie and Lionel. Her name's Regina. So she has hired them to do the same job, but she hasn't told either of them that another person is doing their same job. So they keep running into each other, and both of them are sketchy about it because they aren't telling each other what's going on. And but both of them kind of think, is this person following me? Like, what's happening? And Maddie has said, hey, is there someone else on this job? Because I've seen this guy a couple of times. You would tell me. And she's like, of course I would tell you. And of course she didn't. So Regina's very shady. She's very shady, and I'm not quite sure what to expect from her yet. I just don't understand her right now. Lionel, one night he's been having some bad dreams. So the first couple of dreams were about his childhood. And again, I still don't know a lot about his childhood, so I'm not really sure if that is going to be explained a little bit more. I just know it was tragic, and he was one of the only people that survived whatever happened. Actually, not one of the only person that survived this tragic thing. So, yeah, so he's been having some pretty weird dreams. And then one night he wakes up and someone is in his room searching through his stuff. And he was going to do something like tell that person that he was awake and whatever, except like the person turned and he saw that the person had a gun with a silencer on it, and he decides to not do anything. And so he lays there and he's like acting like he's asleep. And all of a sudden he realizes that someone else is in his room as well, like at the side of his bed. And he kind of turns his head and realizes that there's a person on all fours. It seems like this person was like not on all fours, like on knees, but like on all fours, like hands and feet. And like it reminded me of like someone kind of slinking and maybe not really having the right bone structure, like some kind of creature. But it was a human, and it was like it like got on his bed and was like landed on his chest and started kind of suffocating Lionel. And he tried to do something and he couldn't say anything because he was suffocating. And then all of a sudden he woke up and he realized that it was a dream. And then we have a conversation later between Maddie and Regina, and Maddie said something about she had run into this person and she had looked into them. So she was like talking about Lionel. And so Regina's like, so he had some terrible nightmares then. And then the whole conversation was kind of done. They like moved on. So I think, so part of Maddie's power is maybe like looking into someone's memories, but as she does that, since like you're not supposed to be in someone's memories, I think the side effect is that they have these terrible scary nightmares, and when they wake up, maybe it's even real, like maybe what's happening. Well, Regina did just say they were nightmares. So they have these terrible nightmares and they wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, it was just a terrible dream, whatever. But really, it was Maddie, like, looking into their memories and, like, trying to find out who they are. I have no idea. It's not been explained. But I think that's intriguing, and that's my theory for right now. So they meet again. Lionel and Maddie meet again, and they are like meet in an elevator, and they're both dressed up. And Lionel is now gonna go to this auction to look at these pages of the Poe story to try and see. He's already found out that they're authenticated, but Regina wants to make sure that it's actually true. So she told him, go to the auction, figure out who buys it, then tell me who it is, and then I will offer them more money. And that's the same thing that she told Maddie to do. So they end up in the same party, and Maddie and Lionel, it's like a costume party. It's a masquerade. That's the word I was looking for. It's a masquerade. So everyone's wearing masks and you don't like fully know, who the other person is, or I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to be. But Maddie and Lionel saw each other before the party, so they know each other. And also Lionel knew, like, he could spot her anyway. He's known who she is, so he could spot her anyway. So they start dancing, and then Maddie's like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on. And so they finally realize that they're working for the same person and that she gave them the same job to do. So now they're really confused. They don't know what's going on. This is the first job that Lionel has done for Regina. So he is like, oh, I don't understand this, whatever. But Madison is like, she's a terrible person. We need to make sure that you don't get, like, in her employ. We need to make sure you get out from under her finger and you leave. Like, this is the only thing you do for her, and then you can be gone. And so you start to feel that there is that clearly she's a sketchy person, because this is now the second person who has said, like, don't ever do any more work for her. You can't do this. Like, once you're done with it, you have to get away from this, because she will keep you and she will make you do all of these things. So it's at an interesting time, because I'm not really sure where they're going from here. Clearly, I think they're going to join forces and figure out what's going on, figure out what Regina is making them do, and see kind of where it goes, and if this whole Poe manuscript is actually real, and maybe they will take it. I'm not sure what Regina's stance is right now. I'm sure she has other things going on that they don't know, because it makes no sense that she, like, Lionel even told her, like, why didn't she just, he's like, why don't you want me to just bid on it? You're gonna have to pay this other person more money after they get it. I don't understand why you don't want me to just bid on it. Oh, wait. She'll probably just kill them and take the manuscript. Maybe she just wants to know so she can kill them and take it. Seems like something she would do. Uh, he also, oh yeah, I remember that, the, person that came to interview Lionel when he was still in Chicago, and that he ended up dead. Well, Lionel on the phone with Regina is like, "Hey, did you know this person ended up dead? They like want to talk to me because I was the last person to see him." And he tries to get her to talk about all the stuff, and she says something about like how he was stabbed and everything. And Lionel's like, I said he was dead. I didn't tell you he was stabbed. So they kind of end the conversation there, but Lionel's now like, she totally killed him so that this story would stay out of the media. So I think what Regina does is once she gets you in her employment, she does certain things for you, um, for you to make it so you kind of rely on her later and that it's harder for you to leave her employment. So I'm trying to figure out like how she's gonna use that against him, because she'll definitely use that against him. It seems like what she'll do. So it's definitely starting to pick up. I am intrigued to find out how Maddie and Lionel are going to join forces, because that seems to be what they need to do now to make sure they kind of get away from Regina, because I know Maddie does not want to work for her. Every time she talks to Regina on the phone, like Regina is terrible to her, and she just is berating her and making her feel terrible. And Maddie is quite strong, but when it comes to Regina, she's terrible to her, and Maddie has a really hard time. She has a history of self-harm, and it's been like 100, she keeps saying 183 days, or when it keeps going to the next day the number goes up, of course, since the last time. And she's like, I'm not gonna do it today, um and maybe tomorrow, but I'm not going to do it today. And that's what she keeps telling herself, so she doesn't do some more self-harm to her. So she's definitely has some demons, she definitely has some problems, and Regina seems to be taking a lot of it out of her. So don't know her full story, so just interested in seeing kind of what comes next for both of them. Also, a little tidbit I forgot to mention. I love it when authors kind of put random little notes in their books to kind of teach you something. I love random little facts, and so it makes me kind of happy. But when Maddie and Lionel meet each other in the elevator, Lionel has a suit on, and he makes a kind of funny quip about like how it took him like 30 minutes and a couple YouTube tutorials um to tie his bow tie. And Maddie looks over at him and she's like, well, you're wearing your cummerbund too high, and she's like pulling it down. And it's this like a little awkward moment, and Maddie's flustered, so she's like, did you know that the cummerbund was invented in the 1950s by British British military in India because they wanted an alternate to the waistcoat, because it was so hot, and that they always wore it with the openings facing up because the men would keep their opera tickets in the little slots so they wouldn't have to dig in their pockets to get them. And I was like, okay, that is a super cool tidbit. I'm like, file that one away. So now I have a random tidbit about cummerbunds, and I really like it. So it is Memorial Day this morning, and I have been up for a couple of hours now, but I have been editing my Tome Topple readathon vlog, so I have not been reading anything. But it is like 10 and I'm hungry and I didn't make anything for breakfast. So I think I'm actually going to make brunch. I have some burgers. I think some burgers and bacon, and some onions. I think I'm gonna make some caramelized onions and make like a breakfast burger. I think I'm gonna have a burger and put a fried egg on it. It sounds really delicious right now, so I am going to, my cat here. I am going to caramelize some onions, start on that because that does take a little bit of time. And then probably put the bacon in the oven so I don't get grease all over, and make the burgers. So I will keep you updated. Oh, also, while I do that, I'm going to listen to my book because I have not listened to anything since I gave you an update yesterday. This always seems to happen no matter what. I cannot get through cutting onions without crying. It's driving me crazy. My eyes are burning. Here we go. So many onions. Okay, my cheese for my homemade macaroni. And the bacon for my cheeseburgers. Pretty excited. So I have been listening to Ghost of Gotham. I've been getting my lunch ready, and I've listened to a couple of hours now. And where I left off yesterday, Maddie and Lionel were at the same party. They just realized they work for the same person. So right after that happened, they took Lionel and they're like, hey, you're not who you say you are. Here we go. And then he finds out that Wade, the guy he, light, sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wade, the guy that got him into the party, actually, essentially stabbed him in the back. I was like, here you go, here's this dude. He's blackmailing me to get in here. We're gonna take care of him. So they take him and they go into this other room. I'm sorry, my hair is so fuzzy today. It's ridiculous. Anyway, who cares? They take him into this back room and he sees this thing kind of contained in a circle in front of him, and it turns out it's a demigoddess, and she is fed essentially a dude, and she like rips him apart, or like rips him to pieces, and they tell Lionel, hey, we need it in your phone. If you don't get us in your phone, we are going to feed you to the demigoddess as well. And he's like, well, okay, goodbye cruel world, here I go. And just as he is about ready to step into the circle where the demigoddess is being kept, Maddie comes through and gets him out and kills the guards that have him in there and all these things. So they go back out to where the auction is taking place, and they're trying to escape, and Maddie's like, hey, we still need to know, we still have a job to do, we need to do it. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, we were almost killed. I don't know what's going on. You have these powers or something, because she was able to use some interesting powers to like defeat the guards that had them. And he's like, I don't know what's happening. You need to tell me what's happening. And she goes, you have to trust me. Give me a second. I will explain everything after this. So they go back to the auction. This guy walks in that people don't really know. And the lady in charge is kind of like, oh, I'm so glad you came. She calls him Red, I think. And then all of a sudden he kills everyone. And Maddie puts like the shield up around them, so the like ghosts that this guy brought with him can't get through that shield. So everyone dies except them, and the guy leaves with his ghosts. And so now Lionel has his mind blown, and he recognized something about this guy that had come in. And so him and Maddie are talking later. She's like, okay, you need to sleep. We will talk all about this tomorrow, but you need rest. So she makes me go to bed. The next morning she sits down and is like, hey, I'm a witch. There are things in this world that clearly you don't understand, and you just saw all of this stuff. So now you know that there's other things in this world that exist. So he is now like, his mind, of course, is blown because he has spent his whole life trying to debunk all of this kind of stuff, and now it's right here in front of him. And she says, you now need to get rid of, like, you need to get away from Regina. Like, you can't keep working for her. It's not going to be good for you, and everything like that. And she says, and he was like, no, I've come this far. I've seen these things. I want to keep going. I need to know. So she's like, okay, but you are going to need to be equipped to go into this world because you have no idea about it, and there's things here that you don't understand. So she does this kind of little ceremony or something. Man, I keep reading books about ceremonies. Anyway, she does this little ceremony, and he is essentially anointed. So now his eyes are open to the extra things of this world. So he can now kind of see as a witch would see, or as a demon would see. So he can see all of these different things. So, he goes to be anointed, and the demigoddess, high priestess, I don't know what she is, who is essentially anointing him, says to him, whispers to him, it looks like you've been anointed already. And when she says that, he gets this flashback to his childhood that he has blocked out, and he realizes the reason why he recognized that guy who came in and killed everyone is because that's who killed everyone where he was when he was younger, and he had blocked it out and he couldn't remember. So after he gets anointed, he remembers all of these things, and he goes, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. I've seen this before. That's why I recognized him. What is happening? So him and Maddie decide to try and find this guy, and because they need the manuscript for Regina. And they go to where where the party was, or the auction was, and they get there, and there's no residual anything left. Like, all the spirits or ghosts of these people are all gone, and they can't find them. They can't feel any extra energy or anything like that. And they go to speak to the demigoddess who was captured, and they let her out, and she talks about this. She's a muse for artists, and she's like, I still come when the artists call me, and I help them to create, their masterpieces. And she told them about the last person that came, or that called her, the reason why she's there in New York, and it was a playwright. And Lionel's like, oh, that playwright was great, like, I loved her play, all this stuff, but I heard she committed suicide. And the demigoddess is like, no, her soul was taken from her, and she should have been like mine. I came here to rescue her, but then I was caught, so I can't do anything. I've been caught here for 2 years, and I came to rescue her. So now they have this idea, okay, if they go kind of do some necromancy and speak to this playwright who died, maybe they can find out who stole her soul. I know, so many crazy things. But they go to the cemetery where she's buried, and Maddie feels no spirits, no ghosts, no beings, no nothing. She goes, this is a cemetery. I have never been in a cemetery where I didn't feel at least one spirit or some ghost here. She's like, there are literally no ghosts anywhere. So now we start to think, okay, this guy who came, and maybe he's taking all the ghosts with him. Maybe he is capturing all these people to get an army or whatever. Who knows what he's doing? But clearly he's capturing all of the ghosts everywhere. So he's probably going to end the world and take over. Probably what's going to happen. Good morning. So I forgot to update yesterday. I have a little clip of me listening to the book and like a part blowing my mind. So I can show you that clip. But that's all I have from yesterday. And I did finish the book yesterday. And I really enjoyed it. I was, as I was reading it, I was looking at the differences between Craig Schaefer's other books and this one. And in his other books, and I'm most familiar with the Harmony Black books instead of the Daniel Faust books. I've only read one of those. But all of the Harmony Black books, you have these connections that are being made, like friendships that are being made, and everything like that. And you know that they all love each other. These people that work together, they all love each other. They have each other's back. They've turned into really good friends. You can't go through all the stuff they've been going through without that. But they don't really stay on that. They don't really kind of focus is the word I was looking for. They don't really focus on that aspect of it. And with this book, a lot of what they kind of focus on, or what is important about this book, is the relationship between the two main characters. And Craig Schaefer writes characters that are they're flawed in many ways, but they want to do what's right. They have issues, they have problems, they're royally screwed up. Usually it's because of other people have done things to them, but they want to do what's best. They want to live their best lives in the situation they have found themselves in. And I really like that aspect of his characters. With this book, I noticed, like I said before, they spent a lot of time on the relationship between the two main characters and really digging deep into why they both have issues. Maddie is haunted by some demons, and not like literally, figuratively. She's haunted by some things, and we don't really kind of find out what those are fully in this book, but she has some problems. And I think I did tell you before that she has a history of cutting, and there is one scene where Lionel hears her in the bathroom and she's crying, and she keeps telling herself, not today, and he walks in and he sees her, and he like takes the razor from her. She hasn't done anything, and says like, look, you are okay. And she goes, no, like, I'm a terrible person, I leave people, I don't deserve to be loved, like all of this stuff. And he goes, no, like, you need to stop telling yourself that, like, you are someone who deserves this, and we all have issues, and we all have problems, and we're all terrible people at some time, and you need to, like, let me love you. Let me love you. And you need to let me show you that, like, you are able to be loved and you are deserving of love. And she's like, there's one day, like, you'll wake up and I'll be gone. I leave people, that's what I do, and I am going to hurt you, and this isn't going to be good, and we shouldn't be together because it always ends up in disaster and it's always my fault. And he sits down with her and he's like, look, I have my issues too. You can talk to all of my ex-girlfriends and like it starts off good and whatever, but inevitably I mess it up and they all leave, and I bet if you asked all of them, they would have some other reason as to why they left or what I did to make them leave. He's like, I'm not a great person either. I have my issues, and maybe all of our jagged edges fit together perfectly and that we're actually perfect for each other. And I was like, oh, it's so cute. And so I was like, that's right. That's right. So anyway, so his characters are very much flawed in a lot of ways. But these two are very it's interesting how he really kind of spends more time on characters in this book than the storyline. And it's time for me to go to work now, so I'll update a little more later. So I never finished my update earlier. I did want to mention one thing that I thought was never talked about in the book. Maddie clearly has some issues. She has a lot of mental issues and things like that. And it was never kind of talked about how he kind of never really makes a stance on if like what would happen with these mental issues in any circumstance. So Maddie can keep it together. Like, in certain situations where she needs to keep it together, she's good. She's got it locked down. She knows what to do. She knows how to take care of herself. It's her business, all that stuff. And she doesn't seem to fall apart until later or after the fighting's done or after things are happening. And Lionel can be a big part of that, like can help her in certain ways, but Craig Schaefer never takes a stance on what he kind of thinks about mental illness. He never really says, oh, you know, Maddie has someone, so she's gonna be fine. Or he never says, oh, like, Maddie needs professional help or anything like that. And I think it's good to kind of realize that that is also something that that maybe we need to watch out for when we read books. Like, you don't have to take a stance. Like, you don't have to sit here and explain about how, oh, this is really hurting Maddie and maybe she should get professional help and maybe Lionel help her and maybe all this stuff. You don't have to make a stance on stuff. And I'm not saying that every single book needs to be a PSA or needs to be telling you what is good for you or what you should do or the best way to deal with mental illness. But I also realize that some people who read this book would have issue with kind of the way that was handled and making a statement or not making a statement in any way, shape, or form. People have a problem with that. It's not a problem for me. Like, I don't need to read a book and have every single thing explained in a way that is politically correct or the best way of doing it or whatever. But I do know that a lot of people need that. So there are trigger warnings in this book. There are things that you kind of need to watch out for if it's hard for you to read or something like that. And if you want to go into a book and have the mental illness dealt with in a constructive way and in a correct way, and things like that, then maybe you just kind of have to think about a book like this and maybe not read it. And like I said before, I don't think every book, for me personally, I don't think every book needs to be a statement. And I don't think that Craig Schaefer should have been like, oh, this is what needs to happen. I just think that maybe Maddie's not ready for it. Or maybe he's not even thinking about this at all. You know, maybe that's not something he wants to deal with. Maybe he's just showing characters with character flaws and how they deal with these things. And Maddie has powers, and she deals with things in a different way than humans would. And I'm going to start getting into spoilers of this book because I did finish it yesterday, and I do want to talk about a little bit of it, and it does contain spoilers. So if this is a book that you might want to read, I don't know if it's your thing, then maybe skip ahead. So we find out that Maddie is immortal. She was born in Athens 3,000 years ago, and she called upon the goddess Hecate, which is, I believe, the correct pronunciation. Don't quote me on that. But Hecate is the goddess of magic and witches, I think, and Maddie wanted to get revenge, and so she pledged her allegiance to Hecate, and Hecate turned her immortal. And so we kind of find this out towards, the middle of the book. Lionel kind of figures out that we know she's kind of a witch. We don't know that she's essentially immortal or that she is so old. But kind of in this point in the middle, he finds out she tries to do this magic to get rid of a being who are bad guys doing necromancy, and so a lot of the creatures he sends after people are like half dead. Like he sends this alligator. There's an alligator in the sewers. They go down to the sewers because he kind of draws them there, and they are met with this alligator that's like half living, half dead. And so since it's magic, it's really hard to get rid of. And she uses this magic on it, and it kind of wipes her out. And she is kind of dying from the inside because she takes all of the dark magic in to herself, and it's kind of killing her. And so Lionel has no idea what to do, so he calls someone, and she comes over to help. And kind of within this process, he realizes that she is quite older than she says, or than he thinks, because she also had said something when she was, after she had done this magic, she said it takes 100 years to learn how to do that. And so he knows, of course, that she's not young. So anyway, they're still trying to find this Poe manuscript for Regina, and they just keep running into all of these crazy things. There's magic everywhere. They've come into contact with sorcerers and necromancers, and a coven, I guess, of witches who are trying to keep peace in the town while they're in, where are they? They're in New York. To keep peace, not really a town, to keep peace in New York. So we kind of go, and they're trying to figure out how to stop this necromancer. And Lionel has figured out that this guy has killed his mother, and he has found out that his mother was actually a witch, and she had sworn her allegiance to a goddess as well, and no one had ever told him, and that this goddess had turned her back on him, because he had never knew, and he was never called by this goddess to do her work and all of this stuff. But we find out in the end that that Regina is actually the goddess Hegedi. And so they've been working for this goddess the whole time. And Maddie, who's been running away from this goddess, had no idea that she was actually working for her. Because she, many, many years ago, had used this power, and she felt that she didn't deserve to be in allegiance with this goddess. She didn't deserve to be loved, and she didn't deserve to be forgiven, so she's been essentially torturing herself this whole time. And she found Regina, who was supposed to be this terrible person, and like, she treats Maddie terribly. And Maddie, her whole thing is she's afraid that she's actually going to be forgiven if she goes back to this goddess. And so finally she, towards the end, they find the man who has been taking all of the souls from New York to use as his army. And he's trying to open a portal to the underworld so he can be in charge of the underworld. So this coven of witches comes, and they've all sworn their allegiance to Hegedi, and they come and they're able to stop this man and destroy him. And then it turns out that Lionel, when he was young, after this man had killed his mom, he had run away, and Hegedi had picked him up, and she had told him, one day you will be ready. You're not ready yet, but one day you will be ready to swear your allegiance to me, and I need you to grow up before you can do that. And at the right time, you will remember this conversation, and you will find your power, and you'll be able to use it. So Lionel, right before he is going to be killed by this necromancer, he remembers this whole conversation, realizes that he does have the power and everything like that, and takes care of this guy. So they're good, everything's fine, happily ever after. He now knows he's a witch, and that he has sworn his allegiance to the goddess Hegedi, and he is going to do her work. So him and Maddie are going to kind of do this together. He kind of decides that he wants to still be with Maddie, because they said, the goddess was like, hey, you haven't sworn full allegiance to me, so you can go back to your old life. Like, I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not gonna, do any of that. If you're not ready, that's fine. And in the end of the book, he's like, no, I'm ready. So this is just the first book in a series. You can tell it's the first book. It's kind of setting up a lot of the characters and kind of the magic of the world, and where these characters get their magic from and how it's kind of used. You don't find out a lot of how it's used yet, or the different specifics about it, but I can tell that will definitely be in later books as Lionel learns more about his power and how he needs to use it and what it does. So I'm interested to continue on in the study. Like I was saying before, it's a little different than his other books, and I would say it's maybe not as action-packed, I guess. It's a lot more character driven, so we get more of the characters interacting with each other, which I like too. Like, I enjoyed the series. I'll definitely continue. Editing Katie here. So I originally read two Craig Schaefer books for this week, but as I'm doing my vlog, I see it's like an hour long for one book, so I'm not gonna put two books in this vlog. I will probably put the other one into another vlog and go from there. But I'm going to end it here. I did really enjoy this book, and as I said, I will continue in on the series, but I don't really have a kind of end because it wasn't supposed to end right now. But anyway, so yeah, it's gonna be a weird ending, but whatever. I will post the next one in a little while, and hopefully you like both vlogs.